All rise.
You may be seated. We are continuing in the matter of fandom versus Star Wars Lucasfilm and Disney for the murder of the Star Wars franchise. Normally, jury deliberations is something that is not televised and not made public. But as I am the judge in this trial, I have made the determination in the interests of transparency that we will allow you, the viewers, to see inside the jurors' deliberations. Now, what we have invited on members of the jury, which are also members of the Film Threat YouTube channel. They will be on here shortly to discuss all 9 counts leveled against Disney/Lucasfilm. Randomly selected has been lead judicator Jeff Tucker. Before we bring Mr. Tucker on, we have a Mr. Todd Blackwood who's here. I'm going to mute your mic, Mr. Blackwood. He is going to be our sketch artist for today, and he will be showing us sketches based on today's proceedings. You can follow him at blackwoodpdx.com, and you can also visit his Instagram, and there you go, at Blackwood_PDX. Now, I also want to remind the jury to have an open mind. We have spent the last few months going through all 9 counts with the prosecution and the defense. You have kept an open mind. Now I want to hear thoughts from the jury. It's time for Critics Court. Court is in session. Mr. Ng, I'm disappointed no tie today.
Yes, I can get one. It'll be the ever popular Winnie the Pooh tie.
Well, this is jury deliberations, and while I would expect most to be dressed for court, I understand that the last few months has been very stressful on many people. Has been very stressful, and so your casual jury attire, I will accept it. So here we are. I also, as at the time of this recording, it's the weekend. I am going to be indulging in a little bit of beverage here.
Yes,
and,
today's deliberations will be important. I believe the result is most likely going to be a hung jury or a hanging jury, one of the two.
Well, we shall see. Let's bring on our sketch artist, Mr. Blackwood, thank you for joining us today, and joining us, the lead Judicator. And I'm very excited to hear his statements. I'm interested to hear what this gentleman has to say. And Mr. Jeff Tucker is joining us. Mr. Tucker, thank you for your presence today in court.
I didn't have a choice. I was sent a summons, but I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Would you like to make a statement before we begin and bring on other members of the jury to join you?
Sure. Thank you. I grew up in the Star Wars generation. I saw Star Wars on the big screen when I was young. I waited 2.5 hours for that screening because back then theaters didn't have a lot of screens and you had to wait in line. You didn't just walk up and buy a ticket or do it on your phone. We didn't know what that was. But I loved Star Wars. I lived and breathed Star Wars. I grew up poor. We didn't have a lot of money. But my mother worked overtime whenever she could, and she bought me anything Star Wars I wanted because Star Wars kept me in school, kept me working. I idolized not only the characters on the screen, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, C-3PO, R2-D2. I also idolized the people who made the movies because the Topps trading cards showed you who made the movie, who did the special effects, who wrote it, who directed it. And Star Wars became so important to me. Not only the toys, which I still have to this day, my 12-inch Luke Skywalker doll, which was a friend of mine when I was a kid. This was a friend, not just a toy. And I treated all my toys like that. I also had the bed sheets, the birthday parties, the screenings. When it came available on home video, I couldn't believe it. I could watch Star Wars whenever I wanted because up until that point, I only had the Roscoe Brown recording where R2-D2 told you when to turn the page. And I grew up loving Star Wars. And when Star Wars ended in 1983, there were a couple of Ewok movies. I followed along as I could. I read a lot of the novels that came out in the early 90s, beginning with the Timothy Zahn trilogy, Heir to the Empire. I read a lot of Kevin Anderson, a lot of the EU books, and Star Wars was kept alive. Shadows of the Empire was everything about Star Wars except a movie, and it was fantastic. I had my problems with the prequels, but I never wavered in my support of everything that George Lucas had done for me. So when he sold it, I was a little upset because here we had this big giant corporation known for watering things down and creating movies that didn't really matter. Disney's track record up until that point wasn't very good. And when I went to see The Force Awakens opening night, I was the only one in the group that said, this isn't good. They're not on a good start here. And boy, that was the understatement of the year because it just got worse as the years went. Disney has mishandled every one of these counts. It's obvious where the jury is going to lie in their decision, and I'm proud to be a part of it. Thank you, Judge Gore.
Well, thank you, Mr. Tucker. I'll just say this. Don't be so confident. Don't be so confident that it's going to go a certain way. There's a line from The Last Jedi that even says that. I don't recall the line.
I only saw Last Jedi once. I have no desire to watch it again.
Mr. Ng, anything you'd like to say before we bring on other members of the jury?
Yes, I feel unlike Mr. Tucker, the jury will weigh all sides and will come to a fair and logical conclusion. And again, we don't know where this is headed. All I do know is that we have the greatest jury in the world. They are fair-minded, unbiased, impartial, and we will find the result that is well-deserved. And I'm sure Mr. Tucker is just a little overly confident, and I believe the debate today will be vigorous, and I believe minds will be swayed one way or the other, probably more one way than the other.
Well, we shall see. I mean, there are 9 counts, and we have no idea where this is going to go. But I do want to thank the jury before we begin. I want to thank the jury for their time, their patience. I know this has dragged on very long. We did have a brief recess the week that Mission Impossible came out, the new Mission Impossible, which was a welcome break at the theater. So I'm curious now. It is time, after months of this trial, and in the interest of authenticity, like a real trial, of course it's dragged too long. But here we are, nearing the end, with the finale. July 26th, Wednesday, July 26th will be the finale in court. You will have, as members of the jury, an opportunity to vote on all 9 counts. In addition to that, there will be a final vote as to which franchise deserves to be in my courtroom. Will it be something like a Star Trek or a Marvel? Who knows? But we're going to put together a list, and you, the jury, will decide. Right now, members of the jury that I will be bringing into my courtroom are here to deliberate on all of these counts. Mr. Ing, would you put up the all 9 counts on screen so that we may view them as a reference? There's the yes, right there. That's perfect. Thank you, Mr. Ing. You're on point today. With the exception of the tie, I will compliment you. You've been very good here in the courtroom, even when you've been awful. Now let's go. Mr. Tucker, would you like to say anything as to any specific count before we bring on other members of the jury? Because I want to hear what they have to say.
The specific count that is the mishandling of the legacy characters. As we've seen with a lot of shows and movies that have tried the reboot process, this is your chance to give a love letter to nostalgia and then onward to the next story. And that's the biggest mishandling of the sequel trilogy, is never getting Luke, Han, and Leia in the same room to have a scene together. When Han Solo was murdered at the end of Force Awakens, all of that went out the window. And bringing him back as a Force ghost makes no sense. So they've mishandled every aspect of it.
Thank you for your statement, Mr. Tucker. I'm going to bring the members of the jury on one by one. We have a lot waiting in the wings. We will do our best so that everyone has an opportunity. I promise. Right now, we're just gonna go in order as I see them. M. Juror, you are joining the proceedings. Hello, Mr. Juror.
Hello.
Good to see you. Care to make a statement? You can speak to Mr. Tucker and anything that you'd like to say with regard to all of the counts.
They should hit them with the book. I mean, the counts are pretty valid, and the proof is there, especially the past couple weeks that we've been doing all this. Evidence is hard when it comes to a lot of the mischief that went on with Disney. And yeah, I'm here to kind of just put the nail in the coffin, I guess.
All right, well, let's join Mr. Carver is joining us now. Anything you'd like to say before we bring on more members of the jury and we'll go to open discussion?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Honorable Judge. Hail the 199. I've been watching Star Wars since they were the original trilogy on Laserdisc before George got his fingers into it. I was there fourth in line at the premiere of Revenge of the Sith. When I was still in high school, we used to really show up for these movies, and ever since then, it's just gone swirling the drain down in the toilet. And even though Last Jedi was visually stunning, you can put a gold coat of spray paint on a pile of poop and it's still a pile of poop.
Well, you saved it with the last thing that you just mentioned. Thank you for that, Mr. Carver. Mr. Gandolf identifies as White Jedi. I'm just going to call you Mr. Jedi. Thank you for joining us today. Would you like to make an opening statement before we go to open discussion?
Sure. I watched, I was introduced to the trilogy in 1985 when they showed, and here in Hollywood at the Egyptian Theater, and loved them. had no problem with them. I know that Disney, that Bob Iger, he was also partaking in the Young Adventures of Indiana Jones, and we didn't have a problem with him back then. Why do we have a problem with him now? That's my question.
All right. Joining us also now, Geek Truth 64 is here. I have seen you in the chat, sir. Would you like to make an opening statement before we go to open debate?
Yes, Chris. I want to mention Shadows of the Empire, just like Mr. Tucker, no relation to Chris Tucker of the Rush Hour franchise. Shadows of the Empire. This book right here came out in the 1990s. A lot of people argue that that was the darker time for Star Wars fans because we didn't have content coming out. I mean, we had the book, there were video games, we had comic books, and we had toys. Yes, I stacked all of this before we got started. I am prepared. And in the 90s, that's what we had. And that was enough. I don't, that arguably should have been the dark time for Star Wars fans because we didn't have content. Now we've got tons of content. We have lots of content coming from Disney, spending billions of dollars with 5 movies and 24 seasons of television. Billions of dollars. And I've never seen the fans divided as much as I have between Disney Star Wars fans and people who don't like Disney Star Wars here. So as far as contrasting Shadows of the Empire, the 90s Star Wars with nothing versus now we're getting everything, just proves that just because we have a lot of content doesn't necessarily mean that that's a benefit for Star Wars fans or the franchise.
Thank you for your statement, Mr. Truth 64. Continuing on, Angry Yeti, thank you so much for joining us today. You'd like to make an opening statement before the jury begins its deliberations?
Yes. I've been a fan of Star Wars since I was a child, and my father introduced me to the original trilogy. From there, I went on to watch the sequel trilogy. There's been some contention there, but I liked it well enough. And for over 20 years, I have been infected with Star Wars. It has been a scratch that I've always felt the need to itch. And that led me to start my 20-year journey on the 220 plus books from Del Rey. In this particular book right here, since Vector Prime to this one, they have been fighting an enemy that would eat Kylo Ren's lunch. In these books, you can find the quality of story that Disney has been claiming to put out. Like most of y'all, I've not been happy with it. And hopefully we'll see a change eventually.
Thank you very much, Angry Yeti. I'm going to throw it to Mr. Tucker. If you'd like to go through the counts, and Mr. Ng, if you would put the counts on screen so we can all view them. Mr. Ng, thank you very much. Mr. Tucker, if you would like to go through the counts, let's get a sense of where the jury is leaning.
Absolutely. Count 1. Fraudulent misrepresentation. When they bought it, they said they were going to do great things with it. We've not seen any of that. Sure, a broken clock is right twice a day. The Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2 were pretty good, but even that had to fall by the wayside. The Boba Fett show, oh my God, they took a legacy character and ruined him. It's definitely fraudulent misrepresentation. Even on a ground level with their theme parks, where what was promised at Galaxy's Edge is nothing like what was delivered at Galaxy's Edge. Count number 2, fraudulent misuse of canon. Yeah, this is things that they have changed in Star Wars, such as turning Slave Leia into Hutt Slayer Leia, Slave One into a fire spray, I think is what they call it. It's just odd to paint something that was made so long ago with a modern brush. And it doesn't hold well with us fans who, up until a couple of years ago, spent hundreds of dollars on these very named items that are now problematic. Count 3. Negligent handling and management of the Star Wars franchise. Well, that goes without saying, doesn't it? This is the only company in the world that could take a franchise like Star Wars and create a film called Solo. Now, Solo was made twice. 2 directors took a crack at it. Everybody showed up for work every day at 6 a.m. for months. And guess what? They lost money on it. Didn't make a dime. And the toys ended up at Five Below. Count 4. Malicious introduction of current day politics. Oh, yes, that's the Force is Female t-shirt, which I've yet anyone yet still to explain to me what it means. What does it mean that the Force is female? The Force is universal. The Force is an energy force that surrounds us, binds us, penetrates us, and binds the galaxy together. Count 5, demystifying lore. This is a big one. It didn't matter how Han Solo got his name, that he was alone. It didn't matter that Lando was a player. We certainly didn't need to know that he was having sex with a robot. There's so much mishandling, demystifying of lore. It's obscene. Count 8, blatant disregard and threatening of fans. Well, that's the best one, isn't it? Where if you have an opinion about the film and you dare to describe it or explain it online, somehow you're the bad guy. You know, I've given my opinion a lot, and I've had people tell me that I'm the problem. How can I be the problem? I'm the guy buying a ticket. Count 7, negligent misuse of legacy characters. Turning Luke Skywalker into an a-hole. Turning Han and Leia into an estranged divorced couple who don't speak to each other. So much so that when Han dies, Leia comforts a new character and not Chewbacca. It's unbelievable how they've misused legacy characters that are so important to us. This is modern day mythology. Count 8, blatant misuse of the expanded universe. They threw it all away, and now they're only now picking and choosing what they want to include, such as Thrawn and some of the other items from the EU. But everything that we read, it never happened. They waved their arm. They used the Men in Black gun to say it never happened. Conspiring, count 9, conspiring with and maliciously hiring activists. Yeah, they hired some untalented writers and producers to put these things together with the idea of putting their politics in it as a way of shaming those of us that have loved it for so long to try to bring in new people. Ridiculous.
You're muted, Judge.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. I think it's the beverage is having an effect on me here.
Yeah, you stole it from me. Otherwise, I'd be drinking it.
With regard to your question, sir, Mr. Tucker, the Force is female. What does it mean? Mr. Ng, if you would answer that for us.
What does the Force is female mean?
What does that mean, sir?
Well, if you have been watching for the past several weeks, this has been a highly contentious debate. You know, was the Force is female? Is that a real slogan, or is that a shoe slogan? And we go back and forth on it. But the feeling is that even if it was meant to be a shoe slogan, it cuts right to the heart of where Star Wars is, at least the way Disney sees it. And it is the fact that toxic masculinity used to rule over the Star Wars universe, the Star Wars empire. And now we are bringing that much-needed estrogen to bring balance back to the Force and make it female once again.
Well, I don't normally swear in court, but that's got to be the biggest bullshit answer I've ever heard, sir. Simply bullshitting your way through a statement doesn't make it true.
Good word salad.
Before we open to debate here, we have a couple super chats that came in. We have members of the channel that are currently watching and commenting, and we thank them for tuning in on the afternoon here. John Orchard for 5 says, "I love to count. Ha ha ha. Guilty on all counts with no shame from the defendant." Crunchy Beaver. My one time I say the statement "Crunchy Beaver," these words haunt me.
Nice.
These words haunt me to this day. Crunchy Beaver for 10. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Like the Titanic, Star Wars is going to turn to rust. The destruction of Lucasfilm properties is complete with the Depends of diarrhea. Well, there you are. And now I open the floor to open debate amongst everyone here as members of the jury. All conversation, all counts. Where do you see things going? Don't all talk at once.
All right.
Well, we've seen where things are going. Bob Iger himself said they're going to pull back. They're going to stop making so much content because how many Star Wars films have been announced and then quietly put on the shelf? When I was a kid, Star Wars was an event. You had to wait 3 years between movies. That gave you time to collect all the Kenner toys, and that was an important time of comic books and toys and playing and creating your own scenarios and then seeing what was on the big screen. Now Star Wars is available every week. It's no different than TJ Hooker.
Well, they're owned by Hasbro now, so no more Kenner toys. Maybe there's a correlation there. I think that, as I said earlier in my opening statement, Shadows of the Empire, in the 90s, there really wasn't anything coming out for Star Wars fans. I became a fan in the 90s. I think that's evident that you don't need content, active new content, in order to bring people onto a franchise. And I think that the real issue here, or the main debate that I see a lot from people who like some of the Disney Star Wars, some of them don't, some of them like certain aspects or whatnot, is, well, just be happy that you're getting something. And I would argue that I was happier when I was getting nothing, when I was getting a comic book, and that was it. And so I just don't buy that argument at all.
Well, I'll say this. It's funny. They sit here, Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy, and they talk about how rough they have it with Star Wars versus Marvel. They just don't have the source material that Marvel has. Like I mentioned earlier, there's over 220 of these books. I could pick up one of these books, and I've got this is 25 away from finishing them, and I'll be done with all the Del Rey books, and then I'll read them again. I can open up any one of these books, and I can feel like I'm in the movie. Forget watching it. I can feel like I'm part of it. I can visualize Han Solo leading a fleet to success, even though he doesn't want to do it, because that's just not him. But he's capable. I can watch. I can almost feel like I'm right there watching Lando Calrissian turn a cruiser upside down over a planet. It's I mean, stuff like that. You're gonna ram a ship through light speed. Yeah, no, that's
previous,
right.
Stories at all.
Exactly. I mean, it just baffles me that I mean, these were never officially canon to begin with. So decanonizing it's stupid in the first place. I mean, let's forget the fact that for the longest time, the majority of Lucasfilm actually referenced these books in relation to continuity. So it's just...
Well, there was correlation between the different authors on these books to try
absolutely
and tie them into each other. There was more coordination from random authors who never met each other in person to try and coordinate consistent canon than definitely what we saw from Disney.
Yeah, you could tell every single one of them had read all of the predecessors. The only I guess you could call them continuity errors that I've come across. The only actual continuity errors are with the short stories, but that's okay. They're entertaining still, and you can set those particular ones aside. There's only like 3 collections of short stories. Other than that, I've only come across one book that I think it's misplaced in the timeline, because at the time it says it's at, Wedge Antilles is still a colonel flying in Rogue Squadron, when he should be a general already. But if you take that one book and you move it back in the timeline a little bit, you're square, good to go.
Yeti, you make a great point. The books are a great source of material. What's an even better way to write a film franchise is to put everybody in a room. Let's not forget, if you've ever watched any of the making of any of the Star Wars films, George Lucas wrote these on a legal pad with a pencil.
Yeah.
It cost him about $3 to write these movies. And the fact that they didn't put a big team in a room and say, here's movie 1, here's movie 2, here's movie 3. They didn't do that. And they let Rian Johnson make his own turd of a film that negated everything we saw in the first movie. It's unbelievable that they would allow that kind of just silly mistake to happen that cost so much. And let's not forget, J.J. Abrams, the man behind Lost, which I consider the beginning of the downfall of pop culture, is responsible for the line, Palpatine is back somehow.
Yeah. Well, I like to say, a lot of people say Lost didn't have a plot. I like to say it had a plot. It just got misplaced. And I kind of feel like under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, Lucasfilm has kind of gone the same way.
Oh, they're definitely lost. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I do want to clarify something, because a lot of what I've seen a lot from people who defend, Disney Star Wars. That's fine if you like it. Don't get me wrong. I have one friend who likes it, and that's one more than none, I guess. But like the argument here is that that we just want the expanded universe. That's all we wanted, and that's the reason why we don't like Disney Star Wars. And I think that's pretty ridiculous. I was fine with. I understood completely from a creative aspect why you'd want to not tie yourself to all of those books. That's fine. But what's worse now is not only did they throw it out, but now they're pilfering certain things from it and pulling Thrawn out, and they're doing their own kind of weird version of Heir to the Empire with Ahsoka and things like that. And so it's just like it's ridiculous that that's a defense that I see a lot. And I think I saw that from one of the members of the defense during this trial.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's wild. I mean, yeah, you're right. I could understand, and that's why they were never officially canon to begin with, is because George Lucas made that conscious decision. He didn't want to tie himself to the book, the productions to the books. If he wanted to change his mind, which I'll give you, he was notorious for, changed his mind like a woman changes clothes. But that was his right. He was. I'd said it in a super chat when Doomcock was on here. He was creating something out of nothing. Disney has created nothing out of something, and they're using some of the greatest villains in the EU, like Thrawn, as stepping stones for the strong women. And it's like, I mean, they even put Ahsoka in the books. And when the book that has Ahsoka in it, boy, I'll tell you, I'll take that over anything Disney puts out any day.
Yeah, so Ahsoka is one of the few good characters that Disney's put out there. There are some things Disney's done. As you said, a broken clock is right twice a day. There are some things that they've put out. So, and I'll play devil's advocate on a couple of the counts when we get to it, but I'll yield to anybody else on the jury who wishes to chime in.
Well, I'll chime in.
Please.
Yeah, regarding today's politics, modern day's politics, that's one of the counts that's issued against Disney. And I will say that I'm going to quote Star Wars Memories by Craig Miller, now available at Comic-Con. And I got this one at WonderCon, so highly recommend it. He has a private collection of his own photos in the book, never been seen before. So it's totally terrific if you are a Star Wars fan. I just wanted to put that out there. But to quote George Lucas when he was interviewed on page 371, he says, "The character of Lando, is that in any way a reaction to the press on the lack of non-Caucasians in the film?" George Lucas: "Not really. I mean, it was always intended that way, The whole thing in the press, I think, got blown out of proportion. Because there are actually some blacks in the first film. It's just that people don't notice them. So to quote George Lucas, there have always been black people. Well, why not women Jedis? Why not black women Jedis? And that's reflected in today's High Republic, black women Jedis. So I just want to put that out there that it's always been diverse.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
it just need good characters. I mean, most people don't care about this. They just want good characters. People didn't like Reva because Reva was a bad character. And the actress, Moses Ingram, is a good actress. She was in Queen's Gambit. She can act. So whether that's bad dialogue, whether that's bad directing, I don't know what the issue was there. Maybe probably both. But, you know, that's all we want is good characters, you know.
Boy, don't we?
I'll say this: politics have always been a part of Star Wars. There's nothing wrong with that. Star Wars came out in 1977 after America had had a pretty bad experience losing the Vietnam War. And seeing a movie about American excellence or somebody doing something for the good guys resonated with a lot of people in the same way that the prequel trilogy had a lot to do with the politics of George W. Bush and his administration. But they're always about good triumphing over evil using stuff that's in the film, story points. The problem with the sequel trilogy is that they just make up shit whenever they need it. If something dies, hey, Ray can bring him back to life. That would have been really handy a few times during the film.
Well, there's no plan.
Well, I mean,
that's the main problem. That's the main problem with the sequels. I mean, I don't. I think somebody on the defense might have argued this. I'm not sure, but if J.J. Abrams had directed all three movies, we would have ended up with a much better product. You still would have had people who didn't like it. I'm sure it probably wouldn't be that good, but it would definitely be a lot better than what we got.
It would have been more cohesive. Rian Johnson set out to make his own film. The problem with Rian Johnson's film is it wasn't the first film. He already had things he had to deal with that had been set up that he just decided to ignore, which is baffling to me, completely baffling.
Let me say a couple things.
If they told him, "Hey, this is what we want to do here," you know, from the beginning, here's a laid out plan. This is point A to point C. I mean, the plan was no plan. J.J. Abrams and then Rian Johnson and then Colin Trevorrow, and like that was never going to work.
Oh, most certainly.
I remember watching From Star Wars to Jedi: The Making of a Saga. I think it was on PBS, hosted by Mark Hamill back in 1983-84. The sequence where Luke and Darth are battling on the Death Star in Return of the Jedi, Death Star 2. Luke is hiding under the stairs, and Darth Vader is hunting him with his lightsaber out. And in the script, it said, Darth Vader says something to upset Luke. They didn't even know what he was going to say till they got on set and said, he could probably bring up the sister. He'd say, I'll turn your sister to the dark side. So there are moments where being off the cuff works, but you got to be really talented to do it.
Like Irvin Kershner.
Stellar director.
Well, let me say something about the because we keep hearing mention. Well, original Star Wars, it was political. I disagree with that in part because there's a difference in being inspired or modeled after current day events, and then there is infusing a project with a divisive and voracious, hateful, propaganda-filled agenda. And go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say. I mean, it's not the kind of message they're spreading with this. It's not sustainable. I mean, forget pissing us off. It's going to eat itself alive, and I cannot imagine why a company would willingly set money on fire spreading the message like this if they did not have some kind of ulterior motive at the end of it.
The only motive I can think of is that when I was growing up, Star Wars was mainly, with some exceptions, for boys. We had T-shirts and lunch boxes. I had every Halloween I dressed as either Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader, and if I asked a girl out on a date and I mentioned Star Wars, it was like kryptonite to her. She didn't want anything to do with me.
Yeah.
You're an effing nerd.
Right.
Go to Disney. I went to Disneyland because I'm local here in Orange County. The Star Tour store always had a nice assortment of Star Wars, a laser gun, some stickers, this kind of thing. As soon as Disney bought Star Wars, they turned the front store into a giant Star Wars store, and the big display was purses, high heel shoes, per universe dresses. It was a calculated effort to sell Star Wars as something that women could enjoy and not feel bad wearing this stuff in public, which, hey, I'm all for, but not at the exclusion of the men who already liked it.
Well, I mean, if you want to bring, here's the thing, okay? If you want to bring women in, okay, emphasize the stuff that actually empowers women. Leia Organa Sola always refers to her dad as Bail Organa, who was a powerful figure on his own, best friend to Obi-Wan Kenobi, friend to the Jedi as a whole, Admiral Dalla, director Iceheart Issard. I mean, the women that just romped all over the galaxy, built stuff, destroyed stuff. Mon Mothma, thank you. I don't know how I forgot about Mon Mothma. So a lot of people credit Leia with this, but Mon Mothma is the one that built, sustained the rebellion, and then built the New Republic. Leia was a figurehead until, for all intents and purposes, until the rebellion was won and Mon Mothma stepped down as president of the New Republic.
Well,
and
this idea that there's never been female representation in Star Wars is laughable.
Right.
Look at what
It
Lucas
is.
did in the first film. Princess Leia is captured at the beginning. We get the message to Luke. He thinks she's gorgeous, so he's going to drop his whole life to go rescue her. And the minute he rescues her, what does she do? She takes the gun and says, "Get this walking carpet out of my way." She becomes much more than you thought she was. That's how you write a powerful female character.
Exactly.
Yeah, but if Disney didn't buy Star Wars, what other studio could produce it? I mean, Universal, Sony.
I guess it could have been Fox, and then they just would have gotten bought by Disney anyway.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, I think Universal could have done a good job. I originally thought J.J. Abrams could have done a good job. A lot of people ragged on him for the Star Trek movies, but I liked it well enough. He's was
a Star Wars movie. I mean, it was.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but he's at least competent. And that's really all you need to tell at least a decent story. And we haven't gotten any of that.
Yeah, he's good at making fast-paced roller coaster ride type of film with not a lot of substance.
Yeah. I mean, he's got too much of a love affair with lens flares, but other than that,
I think JJ could have done Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think he could have done Dial of Destiny if it were done earlier. But I don't think he could have done another Star Wars. That's what I think, because he's always imitating, but he never is creative. Doesn't seem to have his own style.
Not perfecting. Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah,
doesn't finish him. Hence the Lost aspect that was brought up earlier. I mean, he was only involved in the pilot and like the first few episodes. He's tied to that series, but he didn't do anything past like the initial setup of it.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things is that George Lucas had a treatment for the entire trilogy, for the entire sequel trilogy. He at least had a treatment, a roadmap, something to go. And as soon as he sold his intellectual property on good faith that they would at least take some bits and pieces. And instead, they sucked all the intellect out of it, kicked him to the curb, and decided to go further into the abyss with absolutely no direction. And it shows, and it was just, sheer effing hubris. And there was no
Star Trek.
Is that Star Trek? I don't think that's Star Trek.
Well,
I think that's an impersonator.
It's some version of Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek in name only.
I'd like to just take a pause in the proceedings as we take a look at some videos. You may also go for a brief recess. We're going to play some of these videos, and I want you to continue. Then we will continue with deliberation along with some comments here. Wait, just some comments. We'll do these comments very quickly. Solomon Thornton says, I am black and I don't like Reva. There you are. Crunchy Beaver for 5 says, I think Judge Gore is about as sober as Slick Willie Clinton on an island of ill repute. Well, we'll see about that, sir.
Is that a compliment?
I'm not sure exactly what
Thank you for the podcast.
Take it that way.
Not exactly sure what that means, but just
I'm doing this so that the films will have a longer life, and so that more fans and people can enjoy them into the future. It's a very big universe I've created, and there's a lot of stories that are sitting in there.
The main thing is to protect these characters, make sure that they still continue to live in the way that you created them.
Nailed it.
I love it.
very, very, very interesting.
It was a quiet Wednesday, that May 25. Quiet, that is. Until Star Wars exploded onto the silver screen and changed the course of movie making forever. We all know that story. But fast forward 35 years, when a real empire consumed it, changed it, broke it, woke it. The magic is gone. The myth is gone.
911 operator, what's your emergency? Oh my god, they killed Star Wars!
The new
Star Wars fun meals for your kids. A hamburger, french fries, and Coca-Cola. Imagine how much fun your kids will have.
Kein Problem mit nur einem Streifen Chewbacca Chewing Gum.
Food? Yes, crunchy food. C-3POs.
New Kellogg C-3POs. Twin rings phased together for a crunchy new force at breakfast.
Yeah, the Force is with us.
A delicious part of this nutritious breakfast.
Star Wars is a modern-day fairy tale, which I really like because it took me on an adventure. I really understood robot R2-D2's feelings when he was scared and when he was crying. I especially liked the special effects, especially the moving monster chess figures. My favorite part was when the stars, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo, and Chewbacca the Wookiee were stuck in the garbage compactor, and just as they were going to be squished, the wall stopped moving. I liked the film, but there are some parts that were hard to understand, such as how a simple boy from the country can fly a spaceship and shoot a gun and hit right on target. And that Princess Leia was sure bossy.
What I was
Oh my God, they killed Star Wars.
what I was trying to do is stay independent so I could make the movies I wanted to make. But at the same time, I was sort of fighting the corporate system, which I didn't like. And I'm not happy with the fact that corporations have taken over the film industry. But now I found myself being the head of a corporation. So there's a certain irony there, is that I have become the very thing that I was trying to avoid.
The problem is that making film is an art. Selling film is a business.
Right.
The trouble is that they don't know how to sell films. As a result, they try to make you make films that people will go to without them having to be sold, which is the real...
Thank you for that brief break. Perhaps some of the video material there might lend some insight from the mind of George Lucas. Very quickly here, comment. The Lost Tales, threat level 1, has been a member for 6 months. It says, here's to 6 months of support to a childhood hero. Well, thank you so much. That's amazing. I do appreciate it. We're going to continue our jury deliberations here and ask you all to express your final statement as we move towards our finale on July 26th. We're going to have many special guests. I don't want to reveal who they are right now, but you will be shocked at who the special guests are going to be. And not only will we be going through every single count in which members of the jury will vote, but in addition, there will be a sentencing. There will be a sentencing after, depending on which way the jury goes. Also, of course, you'll be able to vote on the next trial that we partake in. So with that in mind, any final remarks or final statements from the jury, the last things that you'd like to say for today regarding where you think this case might go?
I have one thing that I want to say, and it's be very short. They seem to have either neglected or forgot how much George Lucas talked about the hero's journey with Luke Skywalker, and trying to replicate and inject their own politics into the sequel trilogy with Rey. She didn't have a hero's journey, she had a hero's time warp, but what they didn't expect is that it would time warp straight to the event horizon.
Okay, thank you very much. Who else would like to step up?
I would like to say something. When it comes to, I guess, future productions with Star Wars, I don't think we're getting anything of quality anytime soon. Hard evidence right here. And that mischief for sure, definitely within the company. Watching interviews with Mark Hamill the past couple of days and the subtle jabs he takes at Rian Johnson during production and the awkwardness that also came with the interviews as well. Evidence on their own merits, I guess you can say. And that this case is pretty much done. I think we all know where it's going to go, but...
Okay, who else would like to make a final statement?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in.
Please.
I did try to read the comic books, Galaxy's Edge. There is such a comic book that they sell at Disneyland, and it was very difficult to read, and it was not engaging at all. And I've read comic books my whole life. I've tried to read the High Republic, the first book. I just kept falling asleep. And I did try to give Kenobi, which I thought was just a middle finger. I thought it was just a middle finger to anybody. It seemed so inconsistent in behavior and lore. And I don't even remember any of the music. And the music is one of the most memorable things from Star Wars. People, even those kids, they would hum the music from Star Wars. It's so memorable. And now today, I can't even hum you Rey's theme or Palpatine's theme. So I just want to say that I did give it a chance. And it's a no-go for me.
Okay. Anyone else before we...
I'll jump in.
Sure.
So, something that Hollywood seems to have forgotten is that creativity and freedom go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Creativity will thrive in freedom, and if you're looking for Star Wars that is creative and will scratch that itch, just get a Del Rey book. Read the Thrawn trilogy. Read the Bane trilogy. The duologies. I mean, they go into so much detail that you cannot find in a movie, even if it is done right. I've been doing Star Wars my whole life. It has been the one constant passion, and the moment Kylo Ren stepped off that ship in Force Awakens, I was done with Disney Star Wars. I called every mistake they made as soon as I saw him walk off that ship. You started with Darth Vader, tall, straight back, imposing, walked everywhere because, he always caught up to his quarry. And then you get Kylo Ren. Oh, my life sucks. I don't like my daddy. Oh, grandfather that's dead. Hear my woes. And it was dry. And to me, Disney Star Wars was dead in that moment. And they have done little to nothing to disabuse me of that notion. So instead of getting angry, instead of screaming and yelling about it, I just kept picking up the books. And I'm happy. I'm good. I've got Star Wars. Disney can suck it.
Mr. Truth.
Yeah, so my relationship with Disney Star Wars is I liked Force Awakens initially. Then I saw The Last Jedi, and I was like, well, I guess we're done here. And The Mandalorian brought me back. I liked the first season of Mandalorian. I even liked season 2, to be honest. To me, what really put the final nail in the coffin was Kenobi. I think Kenobi is worse than the sequel. It's the worst Star Wars I've ever seen. I absolutely despise that show. And at this point, I'm just done with Disney Star Wars. There's no benefit of the doubt left for me to give them. I don't know how many things I'm supposed to watch and how many things I'm supposed to give them chances on. How many times I got to be disappointed before you just give up. There's other things to do. There's other past Star Wars things plenty of Star Wars books I haven't read. There's other franchises out there. There's other things to experience. So as far as Star Wars being dead, I don't necessarily know if I would say Star Wars is dead, because there are people who like it. But Star Wars is dead to me personally, as far as new content goes. So yeah, I think that's really the crux of the argument here is what percentage of the fan base has to consider a franchise dead before it's dead. That's what I'm gonna leave it with.
Excellent point, Mr. Truth. Mr. Tucker, final statement here, and then we're going to look at drawings and sketches from today's proceedings from Mr. Blackwood. But Mr. Tucker, please, it's Tucker time. I actually have a pin that says Tucker time. And thank you for being here today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Like I said, I grew up idolizing Star Wars. I named my oldest child, my firstborn, Luke Skywalker Tucker. So I put my money where my mouth is. I love Star Wars. Star Wars was the hot chick in high school that you dreamed about. And now she's big and bloated, fat, and she's dead. Star Wars is dead. They've kicked it. They've burned it. They've destroyed it. The only thing left to do with Star Wars now is to drag it to the moon of Endor and set it on fire and hope that nobody finds any of the ashes. What they've done is despicable. I can't believe what they've thrown up on the screen, from announcing Palpatine's return in a video game, not in the movie, to Rey somehow taking up the magical mantle of Skywalker at the end of the movie. I'm done. I could care less about Star Wars. I'll retreat into the nostalgia of yesterday, and that's where I'll find my happiness, because it sure as hell ain't in it now until Kathleen Kennedy is out, until Disney decides we can't miss Star Wars until it goes away, and it's time for it to go away for a while. George knew it, and he was right.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker, and thank you to all of the jurors today for your attendance.
Yes, Your Honor. I just have to say that I love a vigorous debate, and once again, it is almost impossible to read the room and know exactly how this court trial what the verdict will be, and I believe this is the heart of debate. To be able to weigh both sides, and I'm on pins and needles. I am truly excited to find out which guilty or not guilty. I have no idea. Absolutely no idea.
We're totally unbiased here.
So
thank
Completely
you,
impartial.
thank you, Mr. Ing, for that. Mr. Blackwood, let's take a look at some of what you've made during the proceedings today. Well, there you go. Okay. Oh, wow.
That's pretty cool.
Oh,
Mr. Blackwood bringing the fire again.
Very, very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
My understanding is that Mr. Blackwood will be doing a Kickstarter with where he'll be selling a copy of a book with all the sketches that he's made during the entire trial.
I'd buy that.
It's now several hundred sketches in total that have been done during everything that we've done here. So this is it's pretty spectacular. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. I also want to remind people that Mr. Ing and I will be. Oh my God. Mr. Ing and I will actually be in San Diego during San Diego Comic-Con. We have a panel on Thursday, July 20th at 4 p.m. at the Marriott. It's our Indie Filmmaker Survival Guide. In addition, if you follow me on social media, I will. I'm going to be doing a signing of copies of Attack of the Doc on Blu-ray, which I now actually physically have copies, and I'll have them for sale at San Diego Comic-Con. And in addition, Alan, isn't there there's another panel on Saturday that you and I will be at?
Yes, it'll be Everyone's a Critic. It's run by our good friend Bill Waters. That's Saturday at 5:30.
Saturday at 5:30, Everyone's a Critic. Excellent. Thank you. So I want to thank everybody today for your hard work, for considering both sides of this. We're not biased at all.
I mean, I can play devil's advocate.
Not at all.
It says something if I'm the most
you go
positive
either
one.
way. That's
Mr.
Like,
Truth,
I mean, at the end, it's all intellectual.
Mr.
pop.
Truth, you had something you wanted to say. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying we're in bad shape if I'm the positive one.
There you go. Well, it's been a great times. Well, thank you. Mikov sends me chat 25 PLN. I don't know what that is. As a member says, as one of the great characters from Star Wars game Knights of the Old Republic 2, Kreia said, apathy is death. We see a lot of apathy towards Star Wars franchise is dying.
PLN will do.
It's a Polish Zolti, by the way.
Yes, thank you. Oh wow. Well, I am part Polish, so I do appreciate that. Well, thank you very much for that. We will end it there. We will be at San Diego Comic-Con this week. Perhaps I'll see Mr. Tucker there. Jeff Tucker, will you be at San Diego Comic-Con?
I'll be there on Thursday. I'll look for you.
Look for me on Thursday. I want to thank members of the jury. You're all members of the Film Threat YouTube channel. We appreciate your support. Alan and I and everyone from Film Threat enjoy entertaining you week to week. And we love, yes, somebody's got drinks. Angry Yeti is knows what's up.
I gotta go get another one.
Oh, yeah. But I want to thank you all. We'll have a good time on July 26th together with a lot of special guests. It's going to be a spectacular show. It's our finale, the season finale of Critics Court Star Wars on Trial. I want to thank all the members, also the members who are in the chat watching who did not participate on camera. Just thank you all. I'm doing, as the producer of the show, Glenn Brown, says, this is the Irish goodbye, meaning I take too long to say goodbye. So we're going to leave it at that. And we're just gonna leave it at that and say, everyone, may the force be with you.
Peace.
May the force be with you.
So say we all.
May the force be with you. Thank you, everybody.
Well, if it's smaller, be sure to set aside 5 hours.
Yeah.
We'll see you in San Diego, and we'll see you July 26th in court.
Hail.
Carry on.